All right, we are live for a Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show. Excited to be back. Looking forward to connecting and also just plugging in and getting caught up on all the things that's happened throughout the week and moving forward. But before we do that, Mario, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Mike. I hope you're doing well as well. And I'm glad to be back after last week's. We weren't on last week, so it's always
Yes, sir.
good to
Yes,
come
sir.
back.
But no, once again, right on time, just because there's always something to talk about, as well as try to help people navigate these choppy waters that we're currently in and where we're heading. So I entitled this Market Crash on the Horizon, Accidentally or Intentionally, with a question mark. And so everything kind of points to the fact that the Federal Reserve has no real options whatsoever. So it's more so them trying to, I guess, bring this thing down smoothly or maybe not. So we're going to jump into a lot of articles, but let's just piggyback or just start off on the primary subject of this week and how I haven't really heard much about it. And it has to do with, I guess, what would be considered the emergency meeting that took place this past Monday and whatever came from that. But did you happen to hear anything or see anything or what? What's your thoughts?
I did hear some talk about an emergency meeting on Monday, but I didn't really see anything. Any headlines or anything. And
Yeah.
we seem to have had Bullard, who's the president of the St. Louis Fed. He seems to be the guy they wheel out every time they want to calm things down. Or last Friday, actually, he didn't calm things down,
Right.
because he said, "Oh, we could even do an intermeeting hike." So last Friday, people were expecting maybe a hike, but they haven't done anything. I think it's all about management of perception economics,
Right.
or which is MOPE. I think it was Jim Sinclair who came up with that term. And that's all they're trying to do, because they're cornered, as we know.
Yeah, good point. And so, speaking of which, as you mentioned, Bullard last week, what it appeared to me that he was, I guess, trying to jump the gun, and he was speaking out of turn or out of alignment with his other fellow board members. But perhaps he has been chosen as the primary spokesman because Jerome Powell usually is the silent one unless he's doing his Q&A after doing the Fed announcements or whatnot. But Bullard and a couple of their other colleagues are the ones doing all the talking. So I'm gonna pull up a couple of their recent statements and how it looks like Bullard is bent on sticking with his initial call for an aggressive hike. And so here's a headline here. It says, Fed's Bullard says his call for front-loaded rate hikes is not a threat to the economy, I guess, or the stock market. And so he's still talking that extremely hawkish approach towards bringing things down, as if that's going to actually happen or what? What do you think?
Well, I remember 3 or 4 years ago when they were trying to unwind the balance sheet from the '08 crisis. Bullard used to be considered a dove. He used to, every time the stock market was down a lot, he used to come out and say something to help the stock market go up. So it's weird that now he's a hawk. So that's why I don't buy it. It's all manipulation, I think. And I think he came out also. He went on one of the business channels on Monday to backtrack a little bit from his comments from last Friday.
Yeah.
So it's all the Fed's really in trouble, I would say. And because they've got two options, they can kill the asset markets. They can bring down stock and bond prices. They can bring down the housing market and save the dollar by raising interest rates, or they can keep everything going and kill the dollar. The thing is, their mandate is to keep full employment and stable prices. So right now they're not keeping the stable prices, but they have this new it's FAIT. It's like FAIT, flexible average inflation target. Which means that they can go above 2% as long as they keep an average of 2% over the medium term, which we don't know what it is. So this is one of the reasons why, the CPI has gone through the roof, because and they didn't expect it to go up as much. So they're in trouble. And there's a guy, I sent you that article from Zero Hedge. I thought that was quite an interesting article.
Yeah.
Zoltan, he used to work at the Fed. This guy, he's a repo specialist. I think he worked at the New York Fed, and then he went to Credit Suisse,
Mhm.
which is one of the Wall Street banks. It's a Swiss bank, but they're one of the primary dealers to the New York Fed. And he's basically saying that the Fed should focus on steepening the yield curve or selling off a lot of treasuries, and,
Mhm.
and not worry too much about raising the Fed funds rate,
Yeah.
because he thinks letting long-term yields go up for treasuries would also bring down like asset prices,
Mhm.
stock market, Bitcoin, housing, because he feels that a lot of the rising prices is due to the fact that a lot of young people are flush with cash because of Bitcoin, and a
Yeah.
lot of baby boomers are flush with cash because of asset prices and housing prices going up. But Zero Hedge, Tyler Durden or whoever he is, says that it's wishful thinking, because it's like trying to bring something down like this is very hard, a soft landing, so to speak.
Right. And that's the thing. Like there really can't be any type of soft landing. It's more so they're gonna have to sacrifice something. Like something needs to be what something will be sacrificed. It's more so will they be able to control what it is exactly, whether it's the Federal Reserve note and all the liabilities and the debt instruments, or will it be the actual asset bubbles that they've allowed to continue
Mm,
to grow to give that illusion of wealth
yeah,
and also confidence for the global monetary structure itself. So something has to give. Now it's just a matter of, will they be able to kick the can down further amidst more people waking up? And then you have the great resistance movement that's taking place up in Canada and around the world with more people waking up and realizing the danger
yeah,
the government's posed to their civil liberties as well as their finances, especially if you can be, your bank account can be frozen. So the clock is ticking fast, and either they're running out of time, or I threw out an idea earlier this week about this whole truck movement, because I've always talked about how the powers that be or the people that's trying to oversee this, they want chaos, they want pandemonium, they want as much destruction as possible. So is there a likelihood or possibility that they could be somehow behind the initial start of the trucking convoy situation and funded it like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all that stuff like that, to then get genuine people into the movement? And it's actually, I believe it's at its core, a lot of people want to get out there and support the truckers and stuff like that, but could have been started by the Soros's groups or stuff like that. So I'll leave
yeah.
it out
That's
there, but
the other point I would make, because you see a lot of times when they froze GoFundMe,
mhm,
when they've frozen as well, they're using terrorist law and
yeah,
anti-money laundering, the Finance Ministry of Canada,
yeah,
to block bank accounts of people involved in the protests. I noticed some people are saying, "Oh, the solution to this is Bitcoin," but I've heard that they're also targeting cryptocurrencies,
right,
cryptocurrency accounts. So I would think that the solution is, some of these,
mm,
silver coins that you can pay people, or and it's like outside the system.
yeah,
The other thing I just wanted to touch upon, the guy called Zotan, we are talking about
mhm,
how to engineer soft landing. He mentioned something that I think we touched upon maybe recently, the
huh,
fact that financial assets in the US are like 630% of GDP.
mm,
And he thinks that that needs to be rebalanced, because labor has lost out a lot in the last 30, 40 years, and capital has gained a lot. So he thinks there needs a rebalancing. The only problem is that the economy itself has become so dependent on financialization that
mhm,
if you kill off the goose that laid the golden egg by bringing asset prices down, you could hurt the whole economy. So it's a
yeah.
really tough situation.
Yeah. So also, I sent you that graph earlier. I put it on the screen right here about the liquidity squeeze or the lack of liquidity flowing freely in the markets itself, and how eventually the well is going to dry up, and markets are thirsty. They need more support, and so something is that's where it's just something
Yeah,
going to give.
that's a sign that market makers, the professionals, the stock market dealers, bond
Mhm,
dealers, that's a sign that there's a lot of volatility and they're concerned about counterparty risk.
mhm,
So they're not like, for example, a market maker usually makes a two-way market on a security or whatever. And the tighter that bid and offer is, and the more volume he's going to show on both sides.
mhm,
But if he's not very confident, it's going to widen that out. He's going to show less volume, so less liquidity.
mhm.
And I think it's a sign that people are concerned about the whole system, about financial institutions, uh, institutions outside the financial system as well,
Yeah.
that there's a problem out there. And that is usually related to rising yields, even though the 10-year yield has come back below 2%.
Yeah. Yes,
We're
sir.
around 194. We can't forget that it started the year at 1.5, so
Mhm.
which is a big move. You can see there from the beginning of 2022, we've gone up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I think we could go back down. But the other thing I noticed the other day, in the FT, they're talking about the volatility in the treasury market, which is
Mhm.
not a good sign either. Lack of liquidity,
Yeah.
and the market that's supposed to be the most liquid and risk free market, not to have liquidity and have a lot of volatility is not a good thing. It's what happened in March of 2020.
Mhm. Interesting. Speaking of which, I wanted to just make sure I bring up the, as we speak right now, the current market conditions, and I was looking at the volatility index, and in comparison to, over the last couple of years or whatnot, and we are, at that point to where things are definitely of concern to a lot of investors. And then you look at the current S&P right now in the red, Dow in the red, Nasdaq in the red, Russell in the red. Crude is appear to be coming down a little bit. And I'm hearing more and more people focus on the energy, like the cost of gas in general with inflation this summer. I'm hearing figures about gas prices this summer that's going to be through the roof. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, it's so much uncertainty out here. But this past week, gold got up to 1900 and it was a little bit above 1900 for a while. And silver is trying to do something as well. But assuming
Yeah,
that,
yeah. In the last 24 hours, we've been above 1900,
yeah,
and I think it looks good. The gold movement, the technical movement. Right now, we're at 1895.
yeah.
I mean, we're down a little bit, but it's normal because I think last Friday the low was 1820.
Mhm.
So we're like $75 above last Friday's low.
Yeah.
And some people will say it's related to the geopolitical situation with the US and the UK trying desperately to start some kind of war.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So let's answer this super chat here. Then we'll jump into some of the recent developments with the talks of nuclear out of Russia. So Vince Grant, appreciate you, man. It says if you had 500K and wanted to double it by year's end, what would you do with it?
Roulette.
Vince, that's a great question, a great problem to have if you got that problem. But what would you do with it? Like if you wanted to double it. When I saw that part, what would you do if you wanted to double it? Like, here's my question: is like, given everything that's going on, if I'm in that position where I got that something extra on the side, I'm not necessarily sure I would want to double it, just because at the end of this year there might be a fire sale to where that 500 might be of use to you right now without the risk of putting it out there and possibly losing it, depending on what you're doing, unless you know what you're doing. So I'm more in the wealth preservation phase and actually trying to, profit off of things at this current moment. But that's just me. But Mario, what would you say to that?
Well, yeah, one thing you need to realize, if you want to double 500,000 or any amount, there's a flip side to it. You're taking on a lot of risk, so you could lose a lot as well. So that's what you need to understand. But personally, if I had 500,000 to play with, and it wouldn't really affect me if I lost it all, and I don't think I would lose it all. I would probably be looking at junior gold and silver miners, or especially junior gold miners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
You think
they
you
are
think you
they
think
they
between
could be
now and the end of this
they
year,
could
you good
become,
with it?
yeah, they could become, I would say, like the altcoins of 2022.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've
So
been
that,
looking into royalties, royalty companies.
yeah, royalties,
Myself.
you can do well as well, and so can you do well with the bigger miners like Newmont and Barrick. But if you look at the junior exploration, you can get some companies that are under $1,
Mm-hmm.
and they're usually traded in Toronto. And what they do, they're looking, prospecting for the gold still, and if they get good results, they're usually scooped up by the big royalty companies or the big miners, and they can go. I think in the 70s there were many 20, 50, 100 baggers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it could double in 2022, and it could even do a lot better if you hold on to it. But it's dangerous.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not giving advice. I'm just
right,
telling you
right.
what I would do.
And
But
it all depends on your own strategy and what you're looking to accomplish out of that at the end of the day. Well beyond, well, if you're able to double it or not, what are you really ultimately trying to do with it? You know what I'm saying? How are you going to put it to work for you ultimately in the long run? Because my thing is this year, like I'm more than convinced that based upon the current market conditions and the basic fact that all central governments are in a trap right now. They're talking one thing, but they really can't do it. So they're going to have to do something or let something sacrifice something, as I mentioned. And that right there will definitely shake confidence altogether. Therefore, the housing market and everything, it's going to be a hell of a buying opportunity, possibly for a lot of people. But one of the things I'm suspicious of is all this bank talk about, because there's going to be social unrest possibly if we get the worst case scenario of the Fed losing control. And as a result of that, people will wake up, and then banks will be under threat because people they're going to panic. They're going to want their funds. And then we're going to have possibility of some bank closures and all that other stuff that could come where you may not be able to get that 500,000 out of the bank if it's there. And on top of that, if it's above 250,000, it may not be insured. So yeah, it's just, hey, I don't have that problem, Vince.
the other thing I would say, is not to think about doubling it, but maybe diversifying it into different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I see a lot of people in the chat giving ideas, and it looks a lot of it has lithium, graphite, cobalt, energy, natural gas, and stuff like that. So, of course, we got a lot of people excited about uranium as well. That's probably a longer term play, but anyway, let's keep it moving. So let's touch on what's happening out in Russia. So you sent me that article. I did have a chance to listen to that one, and it looks like Putin will be leading some drills. And they're also including just the possibility of their ballistic missiles using their nuclear technology. And so that's going down soon. Now, is this, this definitely should be a market rattler if you ask me, but what are your thoughts on this, Mr. Mario?
Yeah, don't forget that this is from the FT.
Yeah.
And even though I subscribe to it, it's a very globalist
Centered.
newspaper. Yeah, Anglo-American empire. So they're trying to say, well, the Russians, yeah. And I think Moscow is saying that this is planned way ahead. They're just doing an exercise. And this article is saying that they're trying to show the Americans that they're prepared. It's a show of force, so to speak. And if you remember well, I think it was Tuesday, the Russians came out and said, and they showed pictures of tanks withdrawing from the border with the Ukraine. And then the stock market picked up. Gold dropped from I think 1880 to 1840.
Yeah.
And then now we're hearing from the West or the Americans or NATO that, the Russians are lying. They didn't withdraw. So it seems like, unfortunately, The West or the Anglo-American Empire or the petrodollar empire. They're desperate for some big crisis to take the attention away from
Yeah.
the inflation problem, from the fact that central banks can't really tighten policy,
Yeah.
because a huge crisis like that would, uh, yeah, would give the government and central banks the excuse to reverse everything and throw in a lot more stimulus.
Yeah, just some of these headlines. I just typed in Russian troops withdrawal, and so some of the headlines itself, these large numbers right here, coming from, as you mentioned, the Western, globalist agenda pumping news sources. It just the numbers alone stirs up, strife and animosity and fear and doom and all those troops on the border, yada yada yada. All right, let's keep it going. Got another opportunity. It says. Wealth for Engineering, appreciate you, man. From Canada, looks like. It says, what is currently happening in Canada right now? Bank run should open everyone's eyes. Glimpse into the future for all Western countries. Market crash imminent. Be sovereign. Rethinking the dollar hashtag. Yeah, man. I think the bank run that was trending over the last 48 hours is something people will be, it will be brought to their front door at some point.
So there are actually, is that happened at, because I'm not really in touch too much. Well, I've been following what's happened in Canada. I know that they frozen funds from
Yeah.
the protesters via these terrorist laws and anti-money laws. So you're telling me now that there's a movement in the general public to actually take out cash from the banks?
So I think it was Tuesday, the bank run hashtag started circulating as a response to Monday when the Emergency Act was activated by Trudeau. And then Freeland, the finance minister, came out saying that, everybody who's participated in it, the banks have permission to be able to freeze accounts and we can backtrack.
Mm.
Then on Wednesday, more information was given that we've obtained the email addresses to a lot of protesters that have supported the demonstrators. And as a result of that, we have begun freezing accounts. And we've got, they said 30 something or so accounts have already been frozen with a lot more to come. And so this is just indication that supporting demonstrators, you will have your accounts frozen, whether it be crypto, bank accounts, whatever. And the banks are able to do it because of this emergency nature. And so that's kind of what we left off at. And I was, scrolling through some of the things on Twitter, just glancing around. And, there were people actually with pictures them going to ATMs, withdrawing cash.
Well, that's a good thing because I think the Yellow Vest protests a few years ago in France, I was following that quite closely, and they had a day where they're trying to get people to take the cash out of the bank as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because once you put cash in the bank, let's say you put $1,000, that $1,000, the bank can leverage that into like 10 or 20,000, and you're basically financing the government and the banks.
Right.
So if they are your enemy, it makes sense to take out as much cash as possible. Of course, you might need to leave some in there or maybe not.
Or you're just
If you can pay your bills outside the system. But some people, like here in the UK, have a lot of direct debits and stuff like that.
That's everywhere. I think that was a part of the plan all along to get it to where it's automatic direct withdrawals to where most all your insurances, they don't.
I remember about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I used to get my bills by post, and I used to write a check to pay them. Write a check and send the check back to the telephone company or to the water company, but now it's all done online. But I think people can still try to keep as little cash in the bank, and the best way to do that is taking it out of the bank. You can also buy some physical silver and physical gold, because that takes the cash out of the bank.
Yeah, here is a sorry to cut you off. Here's a just scrolling through the bank run thread. So here's a picture here, which is on the 16th. So it says, Montreal, 1 p.m. today, Toronto. Hopefully the emergency wasn't them running out of cash. Unfortunately, I've never seen a branch shut down midday with no warning. So this is apparently, but this is kind of generic in nature, but it's just funny. And then here's a picture here as well. That was funny. It says, become free, become wealthy, become untraceable, become independent, become your own bank. Meanwhile, causing a bank run on the financial system and ruling elites. Silver is Achilles' heel to the banking
Yeah,
system.
I've been trying to tell people that for years, and I think the truckers' protest has been good.
Yeah.
It's raised awareness everywhere around the world. I saw that in California, they're thinking of driving to DC, truckers, but as you can see, they can block that now. But if everyone, I mean, a bank run would really be a spanner in the works for the banks and the globalists.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will probably shut the banks and they will like disable the ATMs very quickly though if people start doing that.
Yeah. And speaking of which I heard, just through social media sphere, that there was threats of shutting down telecommunication towers around the areas where the trucking convoys were going to be meeting at, so that people can't use their cell phones to record video or for the truckers to communicate. And then in response to that, somebody came out and mentioned that the best thing to do would be to, at that particular moment when we know we lose communication with each other, every single person who has a residential, Wi-Fi signal at that moment, open up your Wi-Fi so that, people can communicate via using Wi-Fi, which of course comes with risk itself. But
Or you could do radio communication like
right,
the truckers usually use the what's it called, the
their
CD.
CDs, yeah. And on another note, here is an interesting subject that is worth bringing to the attention of everybody. So over the last couple of days in Australia, I'm not sure if you had a chance to see that they were, I think supposedly 500,000 march towards the parliament in whatever city it's at. But the concern was, as they were marching, the use of energy weapons. And so it said, this is just an article I grabbed in reference to that, but it says directed energy weapons used at the February 12th Canberra protests make people sick. Police question and the parliament refused to elaborate. So
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I saw a clip on TikTok or somewhere that protesters in Melbourne, Australia,
yeah.
they're walking down this road, and this woman found cameras embedded in the trunks of trees. So they have cameras to like police people embedded little cameras in the trunks of trees.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And just more stories about how, just me hearing about reporters talking about it, and how they were saying this video shows like some type of energy, was it some type of reader, and they were saying that the amount of energy in that area when the cell phone telecommunications were cut off, that it was abnormally high when they started measuring the energy waves in the air or something like that. So just more stuff to consider. But as more people wake up and the resistance continues to pick up, you better believe they're going to come out with the woodworks with all types of things to try to clamp down so people don't have options out or can communicate.
The other thing they do is they use I think the Dutch call them Romeos, or they're like agent provocateurs. So they're employed by the police or the FBI or the government, and they dress up as protesters, and they cause a lot of havoc in order to discredit the true protesters. That's the other thing that they do. It's an old tactic, just like the false flag tactic, which we are told that it's a conspiracy theory to talk about false flags, but looks like the U.S. government is trying to like push this narrative of false flag, that the Russians are gonna orchestrate a false flag in order to justify war. I would put my money, my 500,000 more on the U.S. being the one who would do that.
Yeah, same here. And speaking of which, let's get ready to open up the airwaves.
Rolf Steiner, yeah, like 9/11. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so feel free, as always. Want to make sure we give you guys the option of asking questions directly, and so feel free to throw out some questions. We'll share our 2 cents on it, and keep things moving. But I also want to touch on, because I think this is important for a lot of people, because the upcoming events surrounding the crypto space will help the public understand the true nature and essence of what the blockchain was originally intended for. And so next week, executive order coming out, and it's my personal opinion that it will be very burdensome for your retail investor, but very, very beneficial for the financial institutions. But looks like they're going to be chiming in on a CBDC as well as to whether or not that's something that will move forward or not. But initially, what are your thoughts? What would you anticipate next week's executive order? Because I think this will be the beginning of every other nation rolling out something similar.
Yeah, I read through that article a little bit, and it talks about a new regulatory framework,
Mm-hmm.
and I think like the CFTC or SEC,
Yeah.
they're always there to favor the big financial institutions. Yes, they do punish them once in a while, but they really favor Wall Street. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think that's what this is going to be, to regulate crypto, because crypto or Bitcoin, when I started looking into it in 2011, 12 or thereabouts, it was supposed to be an alternative to this system that we're
Right.
in, not something controlled by Wall Street. And I think this is going to basically, yes, it's going to put cryptos into the Wall Street frame, and that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I was the moment I saw that ESG and the organizations behind that. Of course, BlackRock, Larry Fink is the primary spokesman, it seems. But when all the Wall Street guys come out, Kevin O'Leary is talking about clean Bitcoins, and I'm like, huh? I thought Bitcoin is Bitcoin. So you mean to tell me all Bitcoins are not created equally? You got the clean ones, you got the tainted ones. Like, so if something comes out of Russia, or not Russia, but Iran or the sanctioned states, are those tainted? And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
so
I think what they mean is how they power the computers,
right,
what
right.
kind of energy they use. Uh, but it's ridiculous, really. I think the ESG. I went to one of my. He was a guy I worked with many years ago, and he was the head of my desk at a futures broker. And he invited me in 2018 because he watched some of my videos to go to this alternative investment conference in London. And back then they were already going on about ESG. And I thought it's just an agenda. It's
Yeah.
political. And all the banks and all of Wall Street are behind this ESG, which is environment, governance. I don't know what I forgot. Social awareness, ESG, environment, social awareness, and governance. It's very much tied into this great reset economic agenda from the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
And it's only going to benefit really the insiders, the big corporations. It's not really grassroots.
Yeah, and here's another question from Vince. Let me grab this real quick. He says, "What junior minors do you guys like? Anything come to mind for you, Mr. Mario?"
Well, I spoke about that today in my video, and I said if you want to find out more about it, to join my Patreon. I told my viewers I own Newmont and Barrick, but yes, I mean, I'll give you one. A company, it's in Toronto. Toronto, no, not Vancouver Exchange. It's called Questex, but it's a very small company. And yeah, I own some shares in that. That could be something interesting to look at. So the ticker is QEX, and the exchange is the Vancouver Venture Exchange, or CVE.
Yeah.
It's got a really small market cap, 33 million, but you might want to look at that one. I won't give you any more. If you want more, you can
Go
ask me
holler at
through
him.
Patreon for a dollar a month. You join my Patreon, and you can ask me questions, and I can give you some more as an opinion, not advice. Of course, I don't
Yeah.
give advice, only an opinion.
Right. So me,
What about you? Have you got any?
I just stick with the big players, the ones that are tried, tested, and proven.
Yeah.
So a lot of people I interview, I end up doing more research and getting
Yeah.
involved with
The
them.
other
So
thing I would recommend you do, I forgot who asked the question, is look into GDXJ and look at their major holdings, because that fund GDXJ ETF, it's a junior mining fund. And if you look at it's all public, their major holdings, you can look at the different companies in there
yeah,
and try to pick some out. And I would balance it, like buy some really small cap ones, mid cap and large cap, and mix them up.
yeah. Good response there. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Vince, go holler at Mr. Mario's Patreon for more in-depth details.
Yeah. At
Um,
Monaco64 YouTube channel, all the details are in the description of every video.
All right, so let me hear. Okay, so feel free to highlight everything dollar to stand out, and I'll jump on it. And then Tony B says, "Why hasn't the USD CYN pair hasn't moved in over a year?"
I think you're wrong about that. I'll bring up a chart and show you. The dollar is at a I think 4-year low or even more against the Yuan. Let me bring it up. Hold on. I've got the chart. I spoke about it this morning. My video as well. Let me bring the chart. Here we go. I'm going to share it now.
All right.
Let me just make sure everything is okay. Hold on.
And then while you guys are at it, if you don't mind, hit the thumbs up button, show your support for the channel.
Where is it?
The algorithms are
Let me
notify more people.
Share. Share screen. Here we go. So there you go. That's the you see that's the dollar versus the Chinese yuan, or SCNH. As you see here, we are at a 4-year low. So the dollar is not looking good, because this is the dollar quoted in terms of yuan. So we've come from like over 7 back in June 2020, and we're now at 632. So it is moving. It is moving.
Yeah. So hopefully so he says since October has been flat.
October.
Yeah.
No, I think it's let's I took it off again. Let's look since October. Hold on. Share it again. Let's look from October then. So here we are, October. We were around 643, and now we're at 632. I mean, it hasn't been crashing, but it's been moving lower, the dollar, and it's broken through this level here.
Yeah. So like just forecasting the looking ahead based upon the trajectory and the trend at this current moment, looking ahead next year, barring some type of unforeseen event, do you see that continue to trend downward?
Yeah, I think what that's showing is that maybe the Chinese are divesting from the dollar slowly. Yeah, because the dollar is going down. They're repatriating, or they're sending a lot of dollars back home. Maybe that's why prices are rising as well. I heard someone say that there are more $100 bills, for example, outside of the U.S. than in the U.S.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of countries are like Russia and China. They're trying to get away from the dollar system.
Right. So everybody's running. I came across an article, if I can find it real quick, because I meant to touch on it myself, but it was just this past week. China announced that they will be doing more currency swaps with surrounding Asian nations.
Yeah.
And that was big news, because they literally, the headline was more so like, we'll not be using a dollar no more. We'll be using our own currencies, like saying it with like some force behind their
yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean the dollar is going to disappear, but it's just not going to be as important, and it has been since World War II.
Right. So here's a article real quick, or just a little headline of it, but let me pull it up here. It says China to work with Asian nations to grow use of local currencies and trade. So therefore, if they're using their own, there will be no room for the Federal Reserve note to be the primary driver of trade.
Yeah, and I mean that's why that's one of the fundamental reasons why I continue to see that foreign exchange pair there go lower, because they won't need China. They won't need as many dollars because they're going to be trading with their own currency versus other countries' currencies.
Right, 100%. Let me see. It says, question for Robert says, why would not China use their own trash paper?
Well, they are going to use it. That's what Mike was saying, that they want to swap it. Let's say China trades with Thailand, they're going to pay if they want to buy something from Thailand. They use Thai baht, or they'll have to sell. They'll pay. Maybe they'll pay. Yeah, they'll have to pay with Thai baht and vice versa. They're not going to use the dollar. You see, that's what they're looking to do.
Right. And then to add into that, with the introduction of the digital yuan, especially with the whole Olympic situation happening, the digital yuan has been getting more use than the conventional payment methods, i.e., MasterCard, Visa, whatnot. So here's a little headline: more than 300,000 Chinese new CBDCs is being spent at the Olympics every day. So the digital yuan will eventually make itself outside the country, probably for governments at first, and eventually probably to the hands of citizens.
Yeah.
In order to do trade or something like that.
I think it would be more for citizens.
Yeah.
Because countries tend to settle accounts through their treasuries and stuff.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, okay, so for example, because I will say, because right now everything that comes from China, we still buy it in dollar denominated terms, and then they settle on their end. So yeah, I was trying to see that at some point in the near future, of course, governments will have to do business in either their own currencies or in the digital yuan or whatever it might be.
Yeah, but they could still say, they're doing business, with China and Thailand. They'll say China's going to sell them $1 billion worth. They say it's $1 billion equivalent.
Yeah,
but they'll do it in their own currencies. They use the dollar just to get an idea.
Yeah.
Eventually, they'll get used to just basically quoting in their own currencies. And
correct.
I think it's one of the reasons why also a lot of countries are accumulating gold, because you can't have a system where the currencies don't have any backing, because then countries are going to start cheating, printing too much. And and that's what the Bretton Woods is supposed to protect against, because the dollar was supposed to be backed by gold, $35 per troy ounce. But then the US started printing too much, and then they had to close the gold window in 71. So we've had an inflationary system since then. And I think China and other countries know that it doesn't work like that. And that's why you need gold as an anchor. Doesn't mean they're going to pay each other with gold coins, but they're going to have those gold reserves to back their paper currencies.
Right. So basically, using gold to reinstate the confidence into the system, i.e., through creating reintroducing the gold standard, creates confidence and stability in the system.
Yeah, and then if China has a little surplus with Thailand at the end of the year, a ton of gold, then that ton of gold will be transferred from the Thai central bank to the Chinese central bank, and vice versa.
Yeah. Here's another question here. ISP Incorporated says, can you guys do an episode playing out a scenario where you go back to strictly using precious metals or bartering without any digital currency? Do an episode playing out scenarios. Okay, that's something to consider there. Something.
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt in silver the last few years. I have a magazine from the north of England. I write articles for them every 6 weeks. And the first time I did that, the editor there, he sent me 5 silver ounces as payment, because he's into precious metals. So it's easy to do. He just posted it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and then one of my concerns would be moving ahead if that was to come back into operations, being able to trust the actual coins itself, because fakes have become pretty much hard to spot unless you know how to test them. So at some point,
Yeah,
that will be the biggest concern is
yeah.
trusting the authenticity of those coins. You know what I'm saying?
That's why people need to start from small. They buy a coin, they go to a reputable dealer, and they learn about the coins. Uh, they learn how it feels, the weight,
Yeah,
and, he sent me Britannia's, so they're legit. Of
yeah.
course, yeah, there are fakes out there. One good test though would be to use a extra strength magnet,
Hmm.
and if the magnet sticks to the coin, be it gold or silver, then it's not gold and silver, because gold and silver are not magnetic. That's the first test.
Mm, right there. All right. So let's end up on talking a little bit about Mr. Erdogan. It
All
looks
right.
like he's trying to get people to come out of their mattress with their gold to boost confidence in the lira. So, based upon what's been happening over the last couple of months there, what's your assessment on what he's trying to do? Is he trying to get away from the globalist agenda, or is he trying to literally get as much gold out of his people's hands?
Well,
And
yeah. Well, that this article is talks about how the Turkish finance minister came to London last week to try to lure investors back into Turkey. So
Mhm.
he went to the city of London, and I think what's happening is London is running out of metal, or they're not running out, but
Mm.
metal is going into hiding.
Yeah,
Because why? Because the Turkey has almost 400 tons of gold, the government, the
yeah.
central bank, in reserves, which is 24% of their foreign reserves. And
Mhm.
the Turkish people, they've got apparently 250 billion of generational gold. So
Yeah.
he wants to tap into about 10% of that gold. My conspiratorial mind tells me that because Turkey, they've been buying gold from the international market, no problem. Why do they have to take it from their people?
Yeah.
I think the bankers, the bullion banks in London, they need the physical. So they're telling Erdogan, you get some of the physical from your people, and we'll help you stabilize the Turkish lira. I think that's what's going on. I hope the Turkish people are, and I think they are, if they're holding gold generationally. I don't think they're stupid enough to exchange that for a piece of paper. I think, if anything, they should be adding more to it. Do the opposite of what Erdogan, I don't know how he pronounces it, is telling you to do.
Yeah. So there's just more games, more trickery to try to get people, to get rid of real money and get back into those debt
Yeah,
liabilities.
but I think it's quite significant as a whole for the gold market and silver, because it means that gold, real physical gold, could be going into hiding. And the bankers in London told Erdogan, we can help you, but come to London, send your guy over, and promise to do this, and we could help you.
Yeah. And then speaking of the very last article, I couldn't help myself. I had to bring this up. Let me try to find it. But we have a U.S. senator that's encouraging or talking about the Federal Reserve needs to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. So and I just question these senators, man, because in my opinion, they've all been compromised at some point, to where they're out here telling people, telling the Fed to buy Bitcoin rather than encouraging their citizens to hold gold and silver. And if they do Bitcoin, sure, whatever, but make sure you got your gold and silver first. That's real
Yeah.
money.
That previous article you had about regulating Bitcoin, Joe
Yeah,
Biden's
yeah.
picture, they said, "Oh, we need to think about the future of money and stuff." But there is there is one simple solution, because the United States became the biggest economy in the world in 1870, not because of some elaborate monetary system. It was just simply because it had sound money, and the Constitution provides for that.
Mhm.
Bimetallic gold and silver. That's all you need. And yeah, I think everything else is noise. The US has everything set up, it's all in the books.
Yeah.
It's the Federal Reserve that's unconstitutional, not the
100%.
not the Coinage Act of 1792.
Right, right. It's the use the dumbing down of society to where they think that having a privatized monetary provider is good for us because they're the reason for our problems. They
Yeah,
help
well,
subsidize governments to get us to
yeah.
the point to where debt is the primary
And what
issue.
the Constitution provides for is just a mint run by the government
Mm-hmm.
to make sure the coins are all uniform and they're not counterfeit, and they take a little seigniorage, which is a little
Mm-hmm.
fee. So
Mm-hmm.
the people control the money supply. So if you go to Colorado or Alaska and pen for gold and find 100 ounces of gold, you can
Mm-hmm.
take it to the your local, to the mint, your closest mint to Detroit, and take
Yep.
that gold 100 ounce and ask them to mint double eagles for you, and they'll take 1% of that to pay for their expenses.
Right.
That's how it should be. It shouldn't be bankers creating these funny money or credit out of thin air.
Right. The free coinage. The
Yeah,
free idea of free
gold and
coinage.
silver, gold,
Right.
bimetallic. I think it
Um,
was Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury. He made sure that it was bimetallic, but unfortunately, the crime of 1873 demonetized silver.
yeah. All right. So last question here, which is a good one, something to get us thinking and positively speaking. Hopefully, it says, "What are you guys looking forward to the most this year?" I got to think about that for a second. I'll let you go. Anything
Oh,
come to mind?
I can, and touch wood. I'm going to be going to Switzerland in the middle of March for a week,
Mm-hmm.
because Switzerland lifted all its restrictions. You don't need a vaccine passport. You don't need any tests.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go see my mom, my sisters, my brother-in-law for the first time in 2.5 years. So I'm looking. That's the highlight for me.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it won't change.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to God willing, continue to reach more people to help them wake up. I think this is going to be a year where there will be such an awakening moment for a lot of people in a positive and unfortunately in a negative sense as well. But and as a result of that, seeing a greater pushback to where these plans will be completely thrown down and people will get back to a version of their normalcy or whatever. And also, I plan on doing some traveling as well myself. So those are two things I'm looking forward to. So, but we're approaching our 52-minute mark, Mario. Well, let's end off on some anything coming to mind to end us off.
Well, I would add as well that I'm trying to wake people up about the monetary system.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is patience, because I could have taken all the vaccines and gone to Switzerland,
Mm-hmm.
but I held the line. Just hold the line. Just say no.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Switzerland the government there has kind of come to its senses and just opened up. So yeah, hold the line.
Right, right. And so, and that's what and I have my suspicions as to how the narrative has changed in a way where more people are dropping mandate. It's just, and so especially here in Michigan, in a lot of hospitals, they're saying by March, they're dialing back on all the restrictions. Something like, okay, so what's going to take its place? Because this doesn't seem like it's going according to their plan, or is it? So that's why I'm like, I want to take a trip sooner than later because they may be on to the next event of some kind. God forbid. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. Have a great weekend. Be blessed. Be safe. Manico64 on YouTube. And be back at it again next Friday. So enjoy your weekend.
Enjoy your weekend. Bye.